Freedom of the press means I am just so ever grateful to even be an American citizen. Let's start there with the First Amendment. From the bottom of my heart, given the events of September the 11th, I just thank God for our forefathers having the insight to make our world one that we can be individualized, one that we can celebrate not only freedom of the speech, not only freedom of the press, but being able to worship as we choose, being able to stand up peaceably and even question our government if we choose. That's so very important. We cannot afford not to have one part of the First Amendment to make us the wholesome people that we are. I think that because of the September the 11th events, and because we do have a First Amendment, and because we did have forefathers with the insight to make us a democratic state, that we are better for it. We can bring to the public those things that are true and just, not what is, not that we are being conditioned or brainwashed, but that we are free to express ourselves, to entertain those things that the people at home want answered. And that is our responsibility. And we take it to our hearts. And we can do that because we are free.
Okay.
Thanks, baby.
Plasma and value of the weather plasma.
Okay. I take it for granted, to be honest with you. I was born in this country, and I take that for granted. I take the free flow of information and ideas as something as basic as breathing or eating. I've never lived without it. So for me to even imagine a world without free speech is very difficult. I know this, that the free flow of ideas, information, opinions, improves the quality of life and also saves lives. It saves lives, very much so. The free flow of information improves the quality of life and it saves lives. And I can give you an example of that. You saw during the World Trade Center attacks, during the attack on America, how information actually saved lives. It was tragic to see those planes go into those buildings. But we should also realize that the families who saw that and who were able to contact the people on board Flight 93, because those pictures weren't censored, because the information wasn't censored, because we had an idea of what was going on, that we were being attacked, that planes were being commandeered all over the country. Because of that, the families who saw that were able to tell that to the people on board Flight 93. And from that information, from what they learned, the people on board that flight decided they would do something and perhaps saved more lives. So the free flow of information is not only important to the quality of life, it's important to our very existence as a country, as a nation. I think that we are blessed to have had that as a founding tenet, blessed to have had that as the very first amendment that we talk about. Because I think the founding fathers also realized that without the free flow of ideas and opinions, the country cannot evolve. That is responsible in part for the great changes we have seen in our country.
I'm continually amazed and marvel at the foresight that our founding fathers had to give us a free press. Not because, as is often asserted, that the press needs to be able to dig through all of the tentacles of government and see what they're up to. That's terribly important, don't get me wrong. But the freedom of the press means the freedom of information, the free flow of information. And information is like a virus. Once it starts to move through a society or through a community, it's really difficult to put it back in the bottle. And a free flow of information is what has revolutionized the world that we live in today. I suppose you can argue that military muscle and the military standoff is what finally brought freedom to Russia, but I would argue that a lot of it had to do with the free flow of information. Information seeps into the core and into the pores, and finally people start to understand what's going on in the world around them. And when information does seep into every part of our world, it's no coincidence that the countries in our world that don't have a free flow of information are also the ones that don't have a particularly good standard of living, don't have a very good record on human rights. Information is freedom in so many different ways.
have to wonder that if the media was controlled by the government, whether Dr. King's message ever would have been spread, whether the word of the Montgomery bus boycott ever would have trickled its way to the north. Probably not, because a government-sponsored media never would have endorsed the spreading of Dr. King's message. They would have come up with a stupid excuse, something like that it was destabilizing. And so, without it, just imagine how different our lives would look. As a journalist, the beauty of it is I can seek out as many different opinions as I can and as I want to without anybody telling me. These people shouldn't have a voice. Everybody gets a place at the table with a free press. And that's really the beauty of American journalism and American democracy.
There have been times, and particularly after September the 11th, when I began to wonder, maybe we are talking a little bit too much. Could somebody stand up in Afghanistan or Pakistan and say, this is going to happen, that's going to happen? Maybe that's not such a good thing to do. And I began to look at it a little bit differently, to be quite honest with you. But on the other hand, I think that along with that, as I mentioned, comes the responsibility of journalists and of our industry to talk about the things and report the things accurately and fairly that we think would be of benefit to the audience that we serve, and that's what our obligation is. I can't say enough about the importance of the First Amendment, about the importance of freedom of the press, but I can also equally not say enough about the responsibility of the press to disseminate information in the right way, in the fair way, in the proper way, in the accurate way, in the responsible way. And I think it all boils down to that.